Hello and welcome to The Last Video Store, the show where I, Alexis Toliopoulos, talk to interesting people about some of their favorite movies. And you have yourself just entered The Last Video Store, a beautiful spectrum of films where every single film is available on its shelves. Yes, it is an imagined world, but it's also extremely real. Joining me on the show today is, I would say quite literally, one of my heroes, especially when it comes to documentary, factual storytelling. It is the director of Tickled, Mr. Organ, the man in front of and behind Dark Tourist on Netflix, and the incredible podcast Flightless Bird. We've got David Farrier on the show. Producer Emma, how excited are you right now?
Oh, so excited. Such a huge fan.
And he just left The Last Video Store now. We are in the wake of chatting to him.
I'm still excited though. It's just the residual excitement still.
We still have it coursing through. We've got adrenaline right now. But it was just so lovely to have him in. He loves film. Great talking to about film.
Yeah.
And I'll say this, I saw Tickled at its very first screening at Sydney Film Festival 2016.
Wow.
It was fucking electric in there. So much so, talking about still feeling excitement, I reckon I still feel excitement from that screening. Because I don't think I would have pursued documentary in the way that I did right after. I was in film school at the time. I had made a little bit of documentary stuff. I knew that I kind of wanted to continue doing some documentary. The film Catfish did that for me first. I go, I'd love to find a story that I can kind of have that unraveling feeling with. And I know if I find one, I'll know it. And I saw Tickled, I go, oh my God, a whole new level for me going, this is cool, weird, investigative documentary into something so specific and so strange. This is the only guy looking into this thing.
Yeah.
And then probably it would have been like, that same year, I came across the Drago on Mountains We Stand story,
Wow.
the book. I go, oh my God, I've got this.
Yes.
And so Tickled, David Farrier have always been in my brain and always been someone I truly admire and look up to and just really appreciate the way that he brings factual storytelling and talks about factual storytelling, how he investigates his protocols, the way he does things. I just think it's just top tier. So I've been so looking forward to this.
I know.
Last few weeks
I know.
he's
You
coming
did
in.
a good job at saving the gushing because you were very pro in the interview.
I know. You'll hear me be cool in a few moments
cool.
time, but allow the gush to continue. And, you know, you love his work as well, right?
I love his work. That documentary Tickled is an all-timer. Just one of those movies where he takes you into a world that you've never heard of and leaves you completely invested in it. Like, you just want to know more. You want to know what happened. You want the movie to be longer. It was just so fantastic. And his TV show Dark Tourist, if you haven't seen it, gotta see it. It's so good. And that TV show, David Farrier and actually John Ronson, was a huge inspiration for my partner Xavier to go to America and photograph the election just a few months ago. And I think that people like David can inspire you even on different mediums. He just makes you want to see the world in a different way, explore different types of people, and that's what's good about film, isn't it?
That's it, dude. You can see the world from a different way. Can I just say, I just remember this. I think I had the first top Letterboxd review for Tickled when I saw
really?
it. And I just
Claim to fame.
It's not the top one anymore, that's for sure. But because I saw it very early, I'll read you exactly what I wrote minutes after seeing the film. I sat with my mouth agape the entire time. Hours later, I'm still left dumbstruck. This is my favorite kind of documentary, a once-in-a-lifetime story that the filmmakers chance across and feel compelled to investigate and share with the world. And I hope the world embraces this film. I will never tickle anyone ever again. That part of my life is over. Read no further and just watch it.
You're a lie. You tickled me as soon as I walked in today.
Well, you know, the times have changed. I'm a new man. Tickling's awesome again.
It's fine now. It's fine.
That's, by the way, the Patreon for this podcast. It's just me tickling M. You can watch it. And yes, police do not check it out, but do pay for the Patreon. But yeah, we're so excited. Let's get into our chat with David Farrier. But before we do, what we do on this podcast, we're going to talk to him about some of his favorite films, and he will be in the style of an old school video store rental combo, as we do on this show. If you, the dear listener or viewer of this show on YouTube, want me to give you a specific staff pick recommendation based on your taste. All you need to do is give us your rental combo, 1 new release, 2 weeklies, chuck it in a Apple Podcast review, Spotify comment, YouTube comment on the Instagram at Last Video Store Batuta. And we got one now. What do we got?
We do. This is from R. Norris 34.
R. Norris 34.
Brothers with Chuck, dare I say.
Yeah, you know Chuck Norris doesn't sleep, he waits. R. Norris, the guy sleeps.
Alexi is one of the great OG podcasters who captivated audiences with Finding Drago and Finding Desperado.
Oh, this is a good one for this guy to get a review one day.
Yes, I really love this review, actually. One of the great encyclopedic movie minds. Dive deep into movies you love and some you've never heard of. Alexi will soothe the ears of listeners with his love of all things film and production. A must listen for everyone who loves the big screen.
Oh my God,
Love
Norris.
it. Thank you, R.
Wow, R. Norris.
And he's
R. Norris are beautiful.
I've gendered them again. I don't know. R.
Could be Rebecca Norris.
Rachel Norris,
Yeah.
who knows? My new release, The Dry. My weeklies, The Prestige and Seven.
Good choices. A couple of like policey, detective, procedural types, investigative thing. I'm going to give you another one. Aussie procedural crime detective thing that slid under the radar from last year that I thought was quite spectacular. One of the best looking films ever shot in Australia. Limbo from Ivan Sen. It is Simon Baker led.
Oh.
And it is shot in black and white. I think there's very few examples of Australian films that are shot in black and white. It's set out in freaking Kubapedi as well.
Oh, I love that.
So really interesting locale for these kind of stories. I'll just read you the little blurb was for it. Travis, a jaded detective, arrives at the remote outback town of Limbo to investigate the cold case murder of Indigenous girl Charlotte Hayes 20 years ago. As truths about the murder begin to unfold, the detective gains a new insight into the unsolved case. Great film. Looks absolutely spectacular. Just some of the truly best cinematography you've ever seen. Ivan Sen movies always look great. He's got one of the best eyes ever opened up in Australia.
Wow.
The guy has incredible eyelids and the eyes underneath them just as cool. But that's Limbo. Check it out. But let's get into our chat with David Farrier.
The Last Video Store.
David Farrier, thank you for joining me inside the Last Video Store.
It's nice to be here. You have a wonderful set.
Thank you
I'm really
very
into
much.
this. This is great. I like junk, and so not saying this is junk,
no,
but I like
it's
things.
junk. I would agree to it.
Yeah, I like clutter.
We do a lot to bring you into the zone, bring you into
Yeah,
the world.
I feel like I'm in it. I mean, look where we are.
I know, look at it. It's
God.
swarmed around us as we're in this space. You've been brought in. We've got every single movie out here on the shelves. You're allowed to wander among them, feel the smells.
It already
taste
feels
the,
good.
The sights.
It's my
everything.
happy place.
Well, I'm
It is.
glad to have you in a happy place. Did you have a favorite video store growing up? Do you have any video store memories? Any
Yeah,
reminiscences?
Video Easy.
Wow.
In New Zealand was the one for me. And
Can I ask, is the same Video Easy we had in Australia with like orange, lots of orange logo?
Yeah, I think my main memory was blue for Video Easy.
Oh, okay.
But I might be wrong. I feel like New Zealand and Australia have differences. Mitre 10 in Australia, I've noticed, has different colours to Mitre 10 in New Zealand.
Wow.
But anyway, Video Easy.
And even the flag has slightly different colours too, you know?
It's crazy. It's almost like they're different countries.
Yeah, it's only slightly though.
My favorite memory is probably a bad memory. I remember being 16 and I desperately wanted, no, I would have been 15, desperately wanted a job in Video Easy. And I applied and my nemesis got the job instead of me. And I just remember that rejection letter from Video Easy and reading it and just feeling like devastated. It was like my biggest failing was not, because it's like I knew I could do that job. I love movies. I love that video store. So my best memory is a bad memory.
Did they serve it well, your nemesis at least? Did they turn things around?
I took no interest. I stopped going to the store. I was like,
It was
done.
tainted.
I was done. No, she wasn't a nemesis. She ended up being like I don't know if you have this term here. I was head boy at my like very Christian school, and she was head girl.
Wow. Okay.
And so but she had no interest in movies or the video store.
No. This is torturous for you. This is absolutely unjust.
The reason they didn't give me the job is that at the time, and possibly still, I was so socially inept and shy. I would have been terrible at that job. But I just remember just being so devastated because, like, what better place to work in than a video store?
Absolutely. I mean, I can see this other version of you. You would be doing the entertainment reports in another realm.
Exactly.
You'd be tanned. This would have been what had broken you out of
All
your
of that.
shell of that
I know.
early age.
I know. No, so that, yeah, but I love video stores. I would, I think I love being able to physically, like, see a thing and grab it and, like, look and just the different sections. Deciding.
Well, grab away. You're allowed to.
Oh my God. And just deciding, like, very carefully deciding whether you go for like a new release or like 10 for $7 or something.
Yes.
Weekly releases. All that stuff I loved.
Well, you're allowed to get a combination of things here today, and we are proud to have your member here as a last video store now.
Thank you.
And I wanted to ask you as well, at the moment, you're on tour with your film Tickled. Tickled is one of my favorite films of all time.
Oh, thank you. Cool.
Hugely influential for me. I saw it presented by you at the Sydney Film Festival back in 2016.
Yeah, fun.
And I was in film school at the time, and documentary was already kind of like where I wanted to go and what I was studying, what I was majoring in. But Tickled, probably along with Catfish a few years earlier, were the first films where I was like, I want to make investigative films if I can find the right story.
Cool.
And I think the next year I made my first doco at film school that like launched that for me and what I've been doing since.
Amazing.
Making weird little investigative docos.
Yeah, cool.
So it's truly influential. Firstly, thank you for making that movie.
Oh, that's nice to hear. No, thank you. That's
Thank
cool.
you for
It's
letting
good
me
the
see
ego.
it. Yeah.
No, thanks for coming.
But you've been presenting it again now
Yeah.
that you've got like a newer, different audience through your podcast, Flightless Bird. What's it been like showing it to people either for the first time or even revisiting the film again?
Oh, it's super fun. Yeah, I mean, it's just it's sort of 10 years since we started filming that film, so it feels like it's been a while. It came out in 2016, but yeah, I have this weekly podcast, Flightless Bird, and I have this investigative newsletter called Webworm, and I'll do these little. Just for a social experiment, to get that newsletter audience together, I'll just do a little pop-up event. And that usually includes like screening something I've made. And so I just thought, let's take Tickled on the road again.
Yeah.
And getting people into a cinema to watch that film, I think it's just a fun one to watch with an audience. Because I'd say 50% of the crowd hasn't seen it, 50%'s watching it again. And it's a fun audience to be in.
And with
it's
like,
awkward and weird and people things take turns, and I love feeling that in the room.
I remember like vividly the first time seeing it in the cinema. Just like it is one of those great films, if you know nothing about it going in, like it is that feeling of being pulled into like that that unraveling thread that just is so compelling. And now with like the story evolving, obviously the film, like it's real life, it's a documentary. The film has gone further. The story's gone further than the film. Yeah. What's it been like in the Q&As, like revealing further things? Are you showing it with like the follow-up short film
it's
as
so
well?
fun. No, so I mean, so much happened after we finished Tickled. So no, I'm not showing the Tickle King, which is like the 20-minute like sort of what happened after. But things are still happening. I mean, I wrote a piece on Webworm maybe 4 months ago now, and it was with the executor of Dave, like spoiler alert for the next 10 seconds. Skip through. The big bad in Tickled ended up passing away, and I ended up interviewing the executor of his will and getting a whole other angle on what his life was like. And so that's a whole Webworm article and podcast episode, and being able to like share that with people as well and tell people about it so people can see the film. And I'm like, oh, if you go to Webworm, you can get a whole hour on like what David D'Amato was doing while that film was happening from his angle, because it's like one of his friends is on the podcast. And so to answer your question, people have so many questions, and it feels great because I have the answers for them, like so much. It's like another film happened post Tickled. Yeah. Which is fun.
That's so interesting.
Yeah.
I think one thing that I really admire about your films, Mr. Organ, maybe even more so, is being able to like put yourself in like uncomfortable situations with these people. Like one of the things that I've taken a lot into my own like kind of documentary storytelling was like a lesson I learned from one of my like tutors was this idea of like believing someone until you don't believe them. And I think you have a really great quality of that in your work as well, where you, or not quite that,
Yeah.
but something interesting. Do you have any thoughts on that, on like how you're interacting with people if you know they're lying to you?
Yeah, no, I mean, I think your tutor put it in a really interesting way. I think I never want to be combative. I'll go in with some idea of what is true and what's not. But I think, you let people talk and they will show their true selves. And so it's not like I'm going into an interview with like a list of like accusations. I'd rather just like have a conversation. I have an idea of what I think is right and wrong, but I will always be open to be moved on that. And so I think you get better conversations that way. I mean, I took a lot of my cues from Louis Theroux and the way he did journalism and documentary making. And yeah, I like having conversations with interesting people that aren't aggressive, and slowly things just kind of, they show themselves to be who they are.
You allow
I
to
don't need to be in
evolve
there
out.
being like, you did this, and getting really aggressive. You don't need to do that.
Yeah, I think it's an interesting thing because I think a lot of people seeing work like yours, they would think, oh, why isn't he saying this? Why isn't he asking that?
Yeah.
I think you get so much more out of it by just giving them space.
I think so.
Right?
The other way is like some people do get frustrated. They're like, why didn't you go harder on that thing? I think some people feel a sense of frustration that you don't go harder. But I don't know.
Yeah.
Well, it's just not my style,
Yeah.
I think. And also with Tickled, there are certain scenes in that doc where I wish I'd gone harder, but I was just really scared and nervous and didn't know what I was doing. And so that's just what happened.
Yeah. I mean, I think it's really interesting the way that your work's like now evolving. I'm really interested to find out now because I've made docos both in like audio space and in video space
Yeah.
as well. But almost like I started in audio docs, then I've been making video series. What's it like going back from like big screen docos, television documentaries, and now how is that different going weekly with audio documentaries? How has that changed your process or even your approach?
Yeah, it's funny. It's I really like with Flightless Bird. It's, for one thing, I love not working with video. It's so nice just to be working with audio.
The
It's
way I
like
think about it is
such a
like you
fun
only have
format.
to focus on 50% of like what like it's like
It's just
yeah.
totally, and I think just dragging people in, it makes you focus more on the story and having audio as a tool to get people to understand the world you're bringing them into. Yeah, it's fun for me, and I guess it's like I enjoy, a documentary is a couple of years at least work, and I enjoy being able to produce something in a week. My background was in TV news where the turnaround was crazy. A weekly podcast feels like a good medium ground between like rushed but not too rushed. And then you can move on to the next thing. And I like stimulation. I like ideas. And so that weekly turnaround, yeah, I like it.
Yeah, and you can always like just tinker till the very end until it comes out, and then you go, I can still just
tinker.
go. You can still just go, oh, I'm going to record one extra line right now that'll help communicate what I need to the audience a little bit more.
Completely. And not needing to worry about shooting and getting the imagery to go with the story. I just find it it's sort of freeing in a way. Like audio is super freeing, and I like working with audio.
Well, allow me to free you one more time, my darling. You are allowed to wander the store right now. You've got access to our new member rental combo. 1 new release, 2 weekly titles, all for you. And then at the end, I'll give you a staff pick recommendation.
Okay.
Directly from my heart,
I
based
love
on your taste.
I love this very specific format with your show. It's really good.
It's a very specific
I'm
format.
into this.
I was like, I need to find a way to talk to people about movies, but I want to do it in a way that's a little bit strange and very
that's
much
good.
my taste.
No, I like a structure, and this is a really good structure.
Well, let's get into the structure, babe. Head on out there. Let's talk about some movies.
New release.
And David, let me tell you this, mate. What a lovely stack of films you have sitting in front
Thank
of
you
you
so
right
much.
now.
Thank you.
Both real and imagined. But you've got a lovely new release film from one of my favorite documentary filmmakers working right now.
Yeah.
I hate to find out this guy's 28 years old.
It's frustrating.
From Lance Oppenheim, you've got
Yeah.
his latest film, Spermworld.
Yeah.
Documentary.
I love this guy. And I had that same reaction. I sort of looked into who he was, and I'm like, you're so young.
I know.
And you're so good.
And you're doing something incredibly unique in like factual
Yeah.
storytelling space.
Yeah.
Of making films that are documentaries, beautifully researched, beautifully observed observational documentaries.
Yeah.
But how does he shoot them?
I know. I'd love to know just meticulous planning. I imagine. I mean, I've met Lance a couple of times now, and he's the loveliest human, and he's great. But I just want to like shake the magic out of him and some. But I also find it.
Keep some of that fairy dust for me, mate.
Yeah, I
Send
know,
some over.
You know, but I also feel watching his stuff, it's like you're watching. It's so beautiful. It's like you could be watching a narrative.
Yes.
And it's not the way I like to work. I like things to feel like an unhinged, slightly off kilter doc where it's a bit rough. He's the opposite, and it's just so beautiful. I mean, Ren Fair was a 3-parter he did for HBO, and that's another amazing doc he did, which is set within the Renaissance Fair community. But Spermworld has like a darkness to it. All his stuff is dark, but Spermworld it's basically about people who need sperm within America. So there's you know, I didn't realize this until I watched his doc, but if you need sperm, you're female, you want to have a child, you need to be artificially inseminated, it's really expensive. It's like thousands and thousands of dollars to get in that system.
Yeah.
And so there's this other market in the United States where people just do it, you know, there's Facebook groups.
The
and
whack
you're
market, if you will.
Yeah, you're meeting a stranger, and they're giving you their sperm, and then you are using that to get pregnant. And so it attracts a really fascinating bunch of men, and it's primarily about the men who are giving the sperm and what motivates them. And, you know, I think that this, and I might be telling this completely wrong, but there's one character in Spermworld who is amazing to me. And he has, I want to say, like 100 kids. You know, he's created a lot of children, and his whole life is basically couch surfing around America, visiting his children for like 2 to 3 days to a week with them, and then and being part of their lives, and then moving on to like the next child.
It's fascinating, right? Like there's even a moment where you see him making multiple phone calls to kids out there apologizing for missing their birthday, because he would have kids that have birthdays almost every single day of the year.
He's on a constant road trip.
And there's even a moment where he sends an apology email for missing a birthday, but he uses ChatGPT to write it. So he has so little time from wishing kids birthdays. He has to get ChatGPT to do it. And I wrote down a line in the movie because he's about to throw in the towel, if you will. And probably will be a crusty towel in this guy's case.
Horrific.
And he says, by the time the movie comes out, I'll be out of the game. I'm already too old to be jerking off in public restrooms. And you see him do it like 4 times within this hour and a half long film.
No, and that's
it's fascinating.
It is. It's like, it's very intimate, and just this idea of, I didn't think about this. Like, how do you get, you know, fresh sperm? You meet at a truck stop, and he goes in and jerks off and like delivers that fresh hot cum to this like customer, you know, in a parking lot.
Yeah.
And the way this whole thing, I mean, all of Lance's work is, as we said, it's all beautifully constructed and shot.
It's shot in a very narrative cinema style, like locked
unreal.
off shots. It looks very beautiful, beautifully colored.
And it's just, you're taken into a world that you haven't thought of before. The first film I saw of his was Some Kind of Heaven. He probably made it when he was 15 or something. I don't know.
That's one of my favorite documentaries in the last few years. It's about basically the equivalent of Disneyland for retirement communities in Florida. Incredible film.
The biggest retirement community in the United States, and he just embeds with certain people and characters within that world. And again, it's shot beautifully, but he has such a good way of finding characters. And you know, I don't want to get sidetracked from what we're talking about, but in that film, there's 2 characters that jump out. There's one guy who's you know, in his 80s, and he has just decided that he wants to do every drug on the planet.
Yeah.
And his long-suffering wife is just like, I have to deal with this. He's creating havoc in this community. There's another guy that turns up in his van. He hasn't gotten into the villages. He hasn't been accepted, but he's trying to find a partner in there so he can like marry in. And so he'll turn up to the retirement home. He'll camp outside in his van, and then he'll go in and try and like woo. Yeah. He's like this like sleaze pot.
He's like a love rat.
80-year-old.
Pepe Le Pew
It's
almost.
rough.
Yeah.
And so these characters are amazing, and Lance he's got a great eye for the way he shoots things, but then the characters are just like, heaven to me. And I'm like,
Yeah.
I want those people.
I was trying to think like what the effect his cinematic style has on you as a viewer, like what it was.
Yeah.
And rewatching Spermworld, it kind of unlocked it for me. And it's interesting because I think it's the way that we're speaking about the film now. It makes his subjects feel like characters.
Yeah.
And
They're not they are scripted people almost. Like,
they
how
become
can they
like
be real?
that. They really do. And you start seeing them as characters instead of people. You're not divorcing them from their humanity or anything, but you start seeing them as characters. And because of that, or the result of that is you see their motivations psychologically so clearly.
Yep.
Like you go, I see why this person has hundreds of children across the world. I see why this person is this 80-year-old that wants to try these drugs. You just understand psychologically what is making them tick and why they're doing it.
He elevates them right into this other level. Like if I went and made a documentary about a Ren Fair or about this retirement community, it would be a not as an effective film. It would feel like a throwaway. With his, you're emotionally, you feel where these people are at, and you're on board, and it just adds this added level of understanding to what they're doing. I think he's incredible.
What do you think that Spermworld says about America right now?
Oh, I think it's everything. I think it says a lot about to me, it was like about desperation. The desperation that people have to want children and to not have the funds or the means to go down those paths that a lot of privileged people might take. And what do you do when you have that biological desperation? And of course, there'll be people out there that are there to help you, but what are their motivations? And I think the interplay between the woman wanting the sperm and the people giving the sperm, I think that relationship says a lot about America. And I think a lot of it does come down to desperation. And again, for some of the donors, like they're doing it to get money, and it's capitalism in full force. But for me, the main thing I get from Spermworld, and it's like a bit of a downer, and it might not sell it to people to watch, but it is. This is this desperate side of America. I found it a really sad documentary. I didn't find it particularly uplifting, but I like that sort of film. I want to feel that mood when I'm watching something.
I think it's a spectacular choice, and I agree with you. I think there's something about like the sadness of this movie, because it is real people. Like we talk about them as if they're characters. It's real people. You're seeing this real life unfold. And I think there's really beautiful stories within that. Like there's so many different little ways to explore this. I think he's found each one feels like a unique exploration of these people that are desperate for something in their life. Yeah. And I think it ends on a not quite uplifting note, but I think a beautiful moment of like soul. So I think it's safe as a recommendation for people.
You're right. Oh no, please watch it.
Please.
And tell people about it. It's like this is a sort of like film that will spread via word of mouth. And it's such a great watch.
And it is on Disney Plus, and if you type sperm into Disney Plus, it's the only result that comes up.
I love that. I love that you've researched that.
It's the only one. If you put sperm in, only one choice comes up.
Probably a good thing for Disney.
It's not like you get a 3 Cavalieros short or something popping up. It's just this one film. So that is your new release film, Spermworld from Lance Oppenheim. And we'll go Some Kind of Heaven in there as well. Huge recommendation. If you've not seen that, absolutely fantastic documentary.
Oh, yeah.
Let us go into your weekly choices now.
Weekly.
Some all-time favorites of yours. We got from the Big Jim himself, Jim Cameron.
Big Jim.
1986.
Big Jim.
Breakthrough film, Aliens.
Yeah.
Sci-fi.
Aliens was, this and Jurassic Park kind of like defined my childhood. They were just these films that just like lodged in my brain, and I've watched them so many times. And, a lot of arguments about whether you'd go to like Alien or Aliens, what film you lean into. I think both are amazing, but for me, the one I keep coming back to is always Aliens. I just think it's a perfect action film. The set pieces are amazing. The practical effects just keep bringing me back. It looks good. And it just took, Alien is this perfect horror. It's this perfect pressure cooker of a film. But I just like that Aliens elevated that. He had this different director come in, and he made it, expanded the world in a way that was just really incredible. You got to learn more about the aliens in a way that was still kept them as a mystery, but just made things bigger. And I mean, I don't even sort of know where to begin with this, but I mean, a lot of people obviously will have seen Aliens. I'd go back and revisit it. Put your phone away. Just have the lights out and just embrace it. It's so good.
Yeah, be engulfed in the darkness and only the glow of that little alien blood coming off the TV.
Exactly.
That's what you need.
And it's just, I think the power loader, I'm a big fan of the power loader. It's Ripley just, Sigourney Weaver just being like the best she's ever been. Jonesy, of course, the cat. Newt, the kid. All these characters are just perfect. Bishop, of course, arrives.
Yeah, love that Lance Henriksen performance as well.
Yeah, I'm a big fan of his. I was obsessed with the show Millennium that he was in. It was Chris Carter's sort of side project to X-Files.
X-Files, yes.
Yeah.
You're talking to a Millennium head yourself right here.
Okay. Yeah, I mean, that show, like the opening titles of Millennium and that score by Chris Carter, my God. I think Millennium is a better show than X-Files, which is controversial.
Very controversial opinion, but there's others like you out there in the world.
Thank you. I'm glad you know. I've got my little Millennium like box sets of DVDs at home. But Lance Henriksen was just so good in that role. He's my favorite droid from the Aliens franchise.
And droid
I
ever?
love it so
Is
much.
he in the top few or?
Oh, ever. I'd say.
Okay, good. That's good.
And a great, when Bishop is torn apart by the alien queen. Great effects. It's just, it's perfect.
What I really love about this film, and I think it's the performance that I always like to highlight when I'm thinking about Aliens, is Paul Reiser as the corporate. I think if you think about,
good call.
If you go Bishop's the great, like your favorite droid, I would say he's my favorite weasel. This is one of the great weasel performances out there.
Weasel's the term for it. And you don't often see Weasel. It's like he's awful, but in this weaselly way, and he gets under your skin. He's so creepy and horrible. Yeah, that's a great call. He is great in this.
And that's also one of my favorite things in Aliens is I love what they go, the production design, the costume designer comes in and go, how are we going to make a suit for the future? And what they do, they just turn that little back collar up. I think there's something about when a sci-fi goes, what's a suit going to look like in 400 years? Yeah. Almost the same, but we're going to do a little bit different. The collar's going to be a bit strange.
Yeah.
And I think that was the first time I ever noticed that. I go, okay, I'm in the future. I get it now.
There's something's, look, so good.
Beautiful.
It's a beautiful film.
When I think about like films that people come back to and rewatch, for me, I think it is when a film is like a unique delivery system for like a set of tones or set pieces that you cannot get anywhere else.
Yeah.
And I think with Aliens, there's a lot of films that try to be like Aliens, like a kind of genre match, genre mix, but I think what it is already it's a sequel, so it's building on something. But with Aliens, obviously you have the genre change of it going from horror to be more action film.
Yeah.
But I think what it loads onto it is you've got this great female protagonist, Sigourney Weaver. The first film, that's almost irrelevant. Like sexuality, gender's irrelevant. This time, she's put into a very macho world. I think that's a key difference is like Aliens is so macho. Like it's so sweaty and humid.
Guns and bombs and phallic shit everywhere.
Lots of phallic stuff.
Marines for Africa. It's fucking crazy.
Yeah. And I think there's something about like that's what brings you back to Aliens is going like there's something so unique about this movie. So many things have tried to imitate it, but you can only get this feeling, this vibe from this one whack movie that Big Jim made.
Yeah. I think it's just a fun thing to show other people. Like my greatest joy is turning to the irritating person that's like making someone watch a film, but finding someone that hasn't watched it and making them watch it. And just like staring at them to get their reaction as they're watching.
You got to find a place next to the TV where you can just only focus on the viewer.
I know, it's
and
true.
you can glean it from the reflections in their eyes. You can still catch up with the movie that way.
Yeah.
And
I love it.
I love that story as well. Jim Cameron pitching this film, pitching a sequel. And a couple of years ago, Empire interviewed him about this to clarify. Because the story is he had a chalkboard. He wrote Alien on it. Then he wrote the S. And he put 2 strikes to it to signify $signs coming in.
Was this legit? Do we know?
This is what he says. And yes, it's true. I was in a meeting with the studio head and the executive producers. I turned my script over. On the blank side of the last page, I wrote Alien. Then I drew an S on the end. Then I drew 2 vertical lines to the S and held it up to show them. Maybe it was just the Pavlovian conditioning. When they saw the dollar sign, they connected closely the word alien, or maybe it was confidence I projected. But they said yes.
That's incredible. He's baller as
Absolutely.
hell, that guy. It's like, I'm not a big like Avatar guy, but I admire like how he's like pushing everything he does into a new fucking space. And that's such an amazing pitch.
It's
such
great
a funny
pitch.
story. It's like the thing is like I'm terrible at pitching. Anytime I pitch a project, it's so kind of pathetic. But to go in with that level of confidence of just like the yes and dollar.
Wow. When you do
perfect.
tickle 2, you got to do the L turn into the pound. Okay? You go, yeah, this is the pound side now.
It's really, really good. It's really,
Well, you
really
know,
good.
I'll figure out whatever currency you need to be worked into a title. I'll help you
you'll
out.
sort it out. Thank you.
I'll make it happen. We've got one more weekly title from yours. This is an interesting
Yeah.
one. It's come up on the podcast once before as well.
Okay.
Charlie Clausen, great podcast host of TOEFOP and Everyone Relax, has picked this one up. You've got Take Shelter.
Drama.
Yeah. Jeff Nichols. Here it is. Beautiful.
Hold it up. Lovely Blu-ray edition that we've got in the store here.
It's just, Michael Shannon, I love I love him in anything. He's just an actor that I always love. It's just, he can do no wrong. And I didn't know, I watched this, a friend recommended it. I didn't know Jeff is a director at all. I just watched it. And it's just it's such a perfect story of this like man's mind sort of starting to come undone. And it's about something I like as well and I'm fascinated by, which is the idea like what is real and what is not real. And this whole thing plays out. He becomes very scared that like a storm is coming and like signs and visions, and he gets obsessed with protecting his family from this upcoming event, and so he gets obsessed with building a storm shelter. And there's this question throughout the whole thing. Is he actually onto something, or is it all in his head? And
are his visions prophetic or are they delusions?
And it's mainly, I would just say, it's a mood. I love the mood of this film, and that's what I'm there for. It's just a feeling, and you sit in it, and it's fucking wonderful.
It captures that feeling of like anxiety so well, like this building, powerful, depressive anxiety through the lens of this one character.
Yeah.
And I think the way that it does it so well is you meet this character at a low point. Like you never know, you've never seen him at a point of mental health joy in his life.
No.
So you kind of never know, what's the good version of this guy look like? What's he look like at his most sane or most at equilibrium? So you never have that sense of hope of like, he'll get good again. And I think that's such a clever choice this film makes of just being like, we're in with this man, we don't know how it will work out.
I hadn't clocked that, and you're completely right. You meet him at this point where he's already not great, and that's your starting point. So it's like, where do you go to from there? And I just think there's one particular scene where I think there's a storm, they're all sheltering together in this space, and he loses it. And it's just such a visceral, insane, tense, horrible place to be. And just Michael Shannon does a very special performance in this film. And I think I'm also apprehensive to talk about it. Like, go in cold, ideally, and just, like, get into the mood of this thing. Again, like, no phone, dark room, watch it, get into it. It's just such a good time. And by good time, I mean anxious, awful time.
Yes, it is.
Yeah,
exactly.
And it's just, for me, it's the perfect ending. It just lands. It's like the last couple of seconds and the music and the build and a bit of dialogue, and I get goosebumps just thinking about it. It's like it lands the ending, and I I'm still thinking about it.
Yeah, I think he's very good at using genre to communicate, Jeff Nichols. And I think this being like, yes, it's like got elements of a modern day biblical epic. Like, how does this feel? But then how is that also the internal version of that story? Like, what is that someone is going through this? I think Michael Shannon, you're so right.
Yeah.
Like, he's just so good at embodying that, like the horrible feeling of that.
Yeah.
But then also being able to turn that into great pathos. Like, you cannot not feel something for him when he's on screen.
I mean, I can't imagine another actor in that role exactly. And also something you mentioned just seems true. Like, I think this like big, like good. Like it's like this big spiritual element, this big feeling of like bigness of it all. It's a similar feeling. Did you ever watch that show Carnival?
Oh, of course, the HBO show, 2 seasons, right?
2 seasons.
Yes.
There was meant to be 4. There was meant to be like
of course, and it felt like it.
But I get very like, I was like raised in a Christian home, so like
Yeah.
I love like an epic story where like something feels bigger than you and how you cope with that. And I think Carnival did a very similar thing where like things were building throughout and you didn't quite know what was real and what wasn't. And I just think that's another, when I'm talking about mood, I feel like if you like Take Shelter, watch Carnival. If you like Carnival, watch Take Shelter.
And if you don't know either, you got 2 great
Do them
recommendations
both.
for you. Yes.
Yeah, I feel
and
like
yes,
Carnival-
turn the lights off watching Carnival as well.
yeah.
I
Always.
know.
I'm always turning
Even if it's a
lights off.
TV show, we want the lights off. Lights
Phone
off.
away,
Phone
lights
away.
off. Obsessed with that.
Get the lockbox.
Yeah.
Get one of those lockbox that you can lock for 45 minutes.
Oh my God, when the number of times like when people watch something and say, I didn't really enjoy that, it's like you're on your I sound like
It's
an
because you
old
got a bad
person
email
raging
while
and-
you were doing
Yeah,
it.
exactly. It's going to
You
take
read a
you out of
horrible
it.
news story during the middle of that movie.
But Carnival, I feel, is this like, it was like one of HBO's like earliest like prestige shows. I think a lot of people missed it. People talk about The Sopranos and The
Exactly.
Wire. Carnival was this weird little offsider, and if you haven't seen it, I just think it's another recommendation.
And set in a traveling circus, is
Yeah.
that what it is?
Sort of a
it's been
freak
long
show
freak show
circus, yeah, as this like good versus evil battle starts to brew.
And a little
Lots
bit of
like,
that magic
signs and
realism and
wonders.
stuff as
Yeah.
well. Yeah, great.
Exactly.
It's a great show.
And the score as well on Take Shelter is just so good as well.
Yeah, I think it's really great. Jeff Nichols, I'm really excited. Like, Bike Riders came out this year.
Yeah.
I just said this to you, but I was very surprised by Bike Riders because I
Right.
didn't know what to expect from it.
Yeah.
But I said Tom Hardy, you've got Austin Butler, you got Jodie Comer, and she's the one doing the crazy accent. Like that's the good stuff about that movie. That's
Yeah.
what's worth the trip
Yeah.
into Bike
Yeah.
Riders for.
Yeah, I didn't love Bike Riders as much as you did, but what I like about Jeff Nichols is that every film he does, he's not repeating the same thing.
No, not at all.
Each film of his is so different, but all of them have something like good to leave you with. Yeah.
For me, it's like when I clock that, oh, it's his Goodfellas. Whenever I clock it, it's someone's Goodfellas or someone's
I like
Mean
that.
Streets. I'm like,
I
okay,
like
I
that.
like this.
Yeah.
You
Yeah,
get an
yeah,
extra
yeah.
half or a full star from me on that stuff.
Do we know what he's doing next?
I don't
Any
know.
idea?
Shall I have a look it up?
I think. Like,
What if I look it up and I go, he's doing Indiana Jones 7 or something like that?
He would never. He would never. I just want to see this keyboard in action that you've got.
Let's do it. We've got
So
a little
chunky.
mechanical keyboard here.
It's so chunky.
We love it's half analog and half digital around us right
I thought
now.
that was just a prop, but it's actually working.
It works. It
You're on
taps in. It taps into this
It's
monitor here.
online.
Upcoming Land of Opportunity, it says. The writer
Okay.
and director. During the next Great Depression and oil crisis, the US government seizes food crops for taxes. Facing resistance in Stuttgart, Arkansas, the rice capital. Amidst economic collapse, farmers fight to keep their harvest. This sounds...
It's so specific.
Wow.
And again, every film he does, it's so specific and different, and it's its own world. And I will watch the hell out of that.
I think so, but also this feels like I've just unlocked a prank, an internet prank. I've somehow found a fake movie.
Potentially.
Because it sounds like
Potentially.
science fiction, like, okay, interesting.
I'm down.
I've always wanted to see a movie about rice and taxes, so finally Jeff Nichols has tackled it for me, and it sounds
Thank
like
you.
it could be an action movie.
Yeah, it's going to be intense.
Finally, A Bug's Life, but live action
It's
is what it
it's
sounds
his
like.
aliens.
That's
yeah, it's his
it.
action epic.
That's it. He should have done Take Shelters. We're going across
Imagine sequel to this.
We're going across the
Yeah.
country. We're trying to save 2 of every animal across America.
Yeah, it's if I was gonna, I would take Shelter for me is just a perfect film. I feel if I made something like this, I would just die happy.
Wow.
It's just perfect.
Well, hopefully you can die happy one day. Hopefully it's in quite some time.
And I hope so too.
Don't make it for a while.
A while off. Yeah, thank you.
Don't make it
I'm
for a
waiting
while.
for my Take Shelter moment.
Staff pick.
Well, we have come to that time of the show, David, where it is up to me now, my duty, my honor, my privilege, but also it's my pain.
Okay.
Because if I get this wrong, I will be sent to a realm that I don't know how to get out of it. I'll be sent elsewhere.
Again, I love this format.
This is the
This is
format.
good.
I put stakes on it. I put
This is
pressure
great.
on it. But let me give you a staff pick recommendation
Okay.
based on your taste, some of the conversations that we've had today. And I was thinking, because I wanted to give you a documentary, and I have another film. I'd say if there's Catfish and Tickle, there's another film that is just as important to me. But now I'm worried because it might have hit you right in the sweet spot as well for you.
Okay.
And if it, who knows, maybe it didn't come to New Zealand. But this is a film from my mentor, Anna Bronowski, who is one of my favorite filmmakers, my hero before I even met her. And I'll get you to say the title of this out loud when I hand it over to you.
Okay.
But this is a film called Forbidden Lies. And how is it spelled?
For a while, there's two. There's a couple of D's in there.
Documentary.
Can't wait for Lies with a Cat.
Lies with a dollar sign.
This is my brain. I'm like, are there too many D's in Forbidden? Lies with a dollar sign.
Lies with a dollar sign. So you got the big Jim sign of approval there.
I have never heard of this film.
Oh,
Pray
well,
tell.
I think you'll really like this film. This is a great investigative documentary as well about fabulism, about fictitious truth and lies.
Okay.
For me, it's like one of the very, very great documentary films. It's got great cinematic recreations in there as well. But basically the story is about Jordanian-born Norma Khoury, who is a best-selling author of a book called Forbidden Love and was like a bit of a worldwide sensation in 2003. I remember it being a big story in Australia. It was purported to tell the true story of the murder of her childhood friend, Dahlia, by her father because she fell in love with a Christian soldier. So it's about honor killings. And then Khoury moves to Australia. Then the journalist Malcolm Knox writes an article exposing the book as complete fabrication, as a fraud. Norma is a hoax author. And this is where Anna Bronowski, the filmmaker, comes in and does this incredible cinematic investigation into fabulism, hoax authorship, truth and lies. And I think that it does like a great job of like pulling you on that.
This sounds
thread as
incredible.
well. So,
I mean, I feel like crazy for not knowing that this existed. It sounds amazing.
I think it's a
Thank
little
you.
obscure these days, but Anna is like one of those great filmmakers. And it is that lesson that she told me of like, you believe them until you don't. And I think she's really good at that and like, you know, keeping them on the hook, being on the hook, but also providing empathy with her subjects in an interesting way. And she is probably best known, it would have been about 10 years ago as well. She made a documentary series about Pauline Hanson.
Okay.
Where she was in with her a lot and like had to interview her a lot.
Right.
And she talked, obviously she doesn't agree with Pauline Hanson's stances on things, but she kind of talked about that idea of like, you believe someone until you don't. And she kind of talked to me as like, yeah, I kind of think of it like, you know, I'm making a thing about someone, but I have to see them as human as well. And she talked to me about going like, I know that I can pass this beer test with her where I did everything honestly the way that I could do it, and I could still go and hang out with her and catch up with her for a beer. It might be a bit awkward, but I know that I did things honestly to my idea of morality and stuff and stuck by them. And I always found that very admirable.
True to their
the way
beliefs.
she
True to
did.
their beliefs. Their values.
But I think this might be very up your alley.
Cool.
And
2007. This sounds perfect. I love people doing recreations in a beautiful way. It reminds me, you know, The Imposter.
I love The Imposter.
I'm always impressed with the recreations in that film. They're so beautifully done, and not in like the horrific like Netflix way of like the recreations is a whole world that I'm fascinated by. True crime, I think, has kind of like made them awful.
Yeah.
Imposter did them so well. I'm curious how this does them now.
Yeah, it's interesting because it's also like Australian documentary, so much lower budget than something like The Imposter. But I think the way that they're able to do it, it does create like that tension, creates that like thrilling kind of feeling as well.
Sold.
Yes. Okay, we've got the full combo being picked up.
Happy. I was scared you were going to give me something that I knew about already because I did genuinely want to discover something new, and
thank goodness.
you have done that for me. So
what if I said,
thank
okay,
you.
have you heard of Alien Romulus?
Yeah,
Yes, you've heard of aliens, but have you heard of Alien Romulus?
Maniac.
Okay, now what if aliens were to verse a predator? Now that is my recommendation for you. What if we were to get them to team up?
I've watched all of them.
Of course you have. Of course.
Yeah, let's not go down.
I could smell it on you on the way in. This is the guy that's seen Alien versus Predator.
Why do we have to end on that note? Alien versus Predator, we had to end on that?
Well, you know, that's okay. It's okay. Hopefully, maybe that could be your take shelter. One day you get to make Alien versus Predator 4, and it's really powerful.
God. Yeah, thank you.
Michael Shannon plays a Predator. I can believe it. I think it can happen.
Really good.
Well,
It's
David,
really, really
thank you
good.
so much for joining me in the last video store. Enjoy your movies.
Thank you.
And thank you.
No, thanks for inviting me into this wonderful place. Like, look at this. Again, beautiful. It's like I'm back. It's like I got the job at that video
Exactly.
store. Julia didn't get it. I got it.
And we will be killing
Fulfills.
Julia. We will
Oh,
be
yeah.
taking her
Gone.
out.
Gone.
We are taking her out of the guilds. The video store guild, we're kicking her out.
Also,
Exiled.
the thing I loved, I don't know if you have this in your store, but the thing I loved about the video store as well, Video Easy, is they would sell old posters for like $1. They'd be in like, they'd wound out rubber band.
We've got a rubber band and a poster for you. What film would you like? You can
Oh
have
my
it for
god!
anyone.
Oh look, I want Forbidden Lights. With
Of
a dollar
course.
sign.
We've got to do... I think we did have Forbidden Lies in the video store and work that as a poster. For sure we
It's really,
did.
really good.
The last video store.
So that was our chat with David Farrier. You can check out his newsletter, Webworm, his podcast, Flightless Bird, which is just fantastic. If you want to keep up with Last Video Store, we're on Instagram at Last Video Store Batuta. We're on YouTube, we're on podcast, and keep watching movies. I'll see you at the movies sometime, I'm sure.